Welcome to the WP-Tonic This Week in WordPress and SaaS podcast, where Jonathan Denwood interviews the leading experts in WordPress, e-learning, and online marketing to help WordPress professionals launch their own SaaS.
Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic This Week in WordPress and SaaS. This is episode 894. This is our first episode in 2024. I don't know where the last year went. It flew past. We got a great interview, folks. We got Anil Capture of Multidots. He's going to be talking about his experience with enterprise level solutions with WordPress. He's had many years running a successful agency in this area. He's got an enormous amount of experience and knowledge to share. I'm sure you'll get some tips and insights from the conversation. So, Anil, would you like to quickly give us a 20-30 second introduction about yourself?
Of course. First of all, Jonathan, congratulations on 194 episode of a podcast. I started my podcast very recently, just this year, and I know how much effort and work it is to produce a podcast. So well done, and congratulations on doing this consistently.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate it. You can send me the check after the episode.
Sounds good. Hey everyone, I'm Anil Gupta. As Jonathan said, I'm a CEO and co-founder of Multidots, Multicollab, and Dot Store. So these are the three different brands. One of Multidots is where we do a lot of WordPress design, development, and mostly enterprise-grade migration and custom development. Multicollab is also an enterprise plugin where we offer Google Docs style collaboration in WordPress. That's one of the things that a lot of enterprise customers were actually asking for. So we built that product, and our third brand, Dot Store, that's where we serve a lot of small, medium businesses who are using WooCommerce and e-commerce. So these are the three different brands and the customer group that we are serving.
That's great. And I've got my great co-host, Kurt. Kurt, would you like to introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Sure thing, Jonathan. My name is Kurt von Annen. I own an agency called Mañana No Mas and a podcast of the same name. And I work directly with great companies like WP-Tonic and Lifter LMS.
Thanks. Before we go into the meat and potatoes of this great show, I've got a couple of messages from our leading sponsors. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
Tired of hosting providers that can't handle high traffic loads? Conversio is here to help. Our platform can handle any amount of traffic, all without slowdown or crashing. With immediate Slack support, performance optimization, and a team that thrives on resolving technical challenges, your e-commerce business is in safe hands. Learn more about Conversio at conversio.com.
Are you looking for ways to make your content more engaging? Sensei LMS by Automatic is the original WordPress solution for creating and selling online courses. Sensei's new interactive blocks can be added to any WordPress page or post. For example, interactive videos let you pause videos and display quizzes, lead generation forms, surveys, and more. For a 20% off discount for the tribe, just use the code WP-Tonic, all one word, when checking out, and give Sensei a try today.
We're coming back, folks. I just wanted to say that we've got a sponsor that's with us to the end of this month. That's Cloudways. Cloudways, I think you've all heard about Cloudways. They offer a great service to WordPress professionals. If you're looking for cloud-based hosting, they've got a special discount deal. You can find all the details on our special page for sponsorship deals and a curated list of the best WordPress plugins and services. You can find all these goodies by going over to wp-tonic.com/deals, wp-tonic.com/deal, and you'll find all the goodies there. What more could you ask for? Probably a lot more, but that's all you're going to get from that page. I'm sorry to disappoint. No, it's a fabulous page, and you should go into it and buy and use all the sponsors' goodies on that page. That's the way to support the show. So, Anil, let's go straight into it. So, what led you into the world of WordPress, and what's the origin story about Multidot? You know, how did it start, and how did you get into this particular sector, offering solutions to enterprise?
So it was 2009. That's when I started and co-founded Multidots along with my business partner and friend, Aslam. And we started our agency pretty much like as an open source solution provider. So we were not just focusing on WordPress, but we were focusing on Magento and Drupal and Joomla, so a bunch of other open source platforms. But our goal was to focus on open source technology and provide that as a solution to anyone who is looking to implement e-commerce websites, stuff like that. So we did that for, I think, first 5 years of our agency. So first 5 years, we did all these different open source platforms.
What was your background before you started the agency, though?
Yeah, so I studied computer science. So I studied computer science. I was a developer. My first job was as a PHP web developer. So I was building websites during my college years, and after that, so I worked for roughly like 5 years in different tech companies as a web developer. And my last job was project manager. That's where I had a chance to manage team and client and projects. And that kind of like gave me a confidence and created a path for me to become an entrepreneur. All
right. So I'm sorry to interrupt. So you started developing Drupal and other web-based platforms. So what led to the path in specializing more into WordPress?
Yeah. So first 5 years in our business, we worked in all these different platforms. And one thing it was very hard to catch up with all the updates that's going on in Magento, in Joomla, and Drupal and WordPress. So it was very hard to kind of like stay up to date as a developer or as a solution provider. And we noticed that, so I think there was one time where I was like doing a math and I looked into our customer base, and I think 60-70% were on WordPress. So the Magento, Joomla, Drupal, they were all like less than 30%. And that's when I think my business partner and I, we made a decision that it's very stressful to kind of like continue to focus on 4 different platforms and also continue to invest time and energy. So that's when we made a decision to just focus on one platform. And WordPress at that time was very popular, fastest growing open source content management CMS platform. It is still fastest growing. So that was like our motivation to focus on WordPress. And one of your question was how we end up focusing on more this enterprise sector or enterprise space in the WordPress. So that's also very interesting observation, where I think it was around our 10-year of my agency's anniversary. So 10 years in, so we were like focusing on the WordPress. And one thing I noticed that the WordPress software, so overall WordPress software that a high school blogger or small business uses is the same piece of software that enterprise also uses. Okay. So in a sense, it wasn't changing that much. The 80-90% of the foundation is the same. It's just like there are a couple of things that you need to handle differently when it comes to the enterprise and all. So that was kind of like a big, because earlier it was like, that we're not sure if the WordPress is right for the enterprise. But then when I started to going to different WordCamps and being more involved in the WordPress community, I learned that WordPress is being used by some of the big enterprises. And that kind of like created a spark that, we should actually focus on this another space where the WordPress for the enterprises. So there was one big motivation there for us. And another thing I think was the confidence, because when you work with small, medium businesses for a while, you also have, we had some doubts that whether, we are ready to serve the enterprise customers, the challenges and the demands for the enterprise customer. But I think that also something that came up with more experience, so we started kind of like working with some of the complex WordPress migrations and customizations for the small customers. So that was also a big actually learning that before we started working with big clients, we were already working on a complex WordPress projects for small clients. So there is like a difference, so there are two different things. One is big client and second is a complex WordPress project, right? So for the big clients, it's the same level of complexity, or maybe even there are a couple of things that changes. So that was another big confidence for us that we already have experience and knowledge on working on complex WordPress migrations and customization. So that should be not be a problem.
I think I'm only, because obviously I've done a few large, it's mostly in the medium size, the small to medium size that WP-Tonic has been active in. But I have done some larger projects for larger companies. I have a couple large clients. I think one of the main areas that I just want to see your own insight about this. I think one of the bigger differences when you get larger companies is integrations. You touched about your own plugin that works with Google Docs, your own solution. A lot of companies have got legacy systems, or they require integration into accountancy, external CRMs that are dominant in a particular industry sector, but not generally that well known, that type of thing. Would you agree? I think that's a learning process for our agency that's moving up, is that they're going to be dealing with a lot more integrations with other systems. What's your own feelings about this?
I agree with you. The integration is one of the things that is important. I will add a couple more. So when we started to focusing on enterprise, what I observed that, as I mentioned, the WordPress software is the same, but there are a couple of things that changes when we work with the enterprise customer. The first one is structure. So sometimes they don't want a plain, simple WordPress, right? They will need headless, or sometimes they will have the publishing will be happening something where, and they will just be using WordPress to display, so they write content somewhere else and it got published on WordPress website. So structure, compliance is something that's also important. Speed to publish. So how fast their publishing or content creation team can write and publish the content. So that becomes very important for the enterprises. Performance, both performance of the WordPress as a backend and front end. The security, integration that you mentioned, and the last one I would say support. So those are the 7 things that we identified that, these are the 7 things which are very important and also a little bit different how we address a small website versus an enterprise website. These 7 things, something that we'll pay attention to.
That's great. Over to you, Kurt.
Yeah, I'm listening with big wide open ears, right? Because, as an agency, you're like, well, what are some of the secrets? What are some of the things to look for? In my personal experience, I've noticed there's, almost like a prejudiced opinion of WordPress at the C-level, executive level, right? Where they're like, oh, no, I heard WordPress has security issues, or no, we don't want to be on WordPress. We need a bespoke, custom website or something like that. And in some cases, I've actually gone, when I first interviewed with Jonathan years ago, he was like, how did you get WordPress into Suzuki? And I'm like, I just did it and asked for forgiveness instead of asking for permission. And then once they realized it, they were like, well, it works. That was years ago. How do you think WordPress is kind of like viewed or seen by the executive world now in today's market? Do you think it's better accepted, or do you think it still has that weird, like, you got to sell them on it first before you can do it?
That's a very good question. In fact, we also have observed this change that 3 or 4 years ago, we were getting a lot of security questions and concern from the technical buyers and enterprises. In last, I think, especially in 2023, we haven't got that many questions related to security. So I'm sure the perception is changing, and some of the big case studies like NASA, White House, I think that kind of also adding that confidence, where when they hear that there are a lot of big WordPress, big brands and White House and NASA and this kind of like government institutes are also using WordPress and trusting on the WordPress. So that I think they filter out that doubt and confidence in WordPress, for especially in the security space. But I would also say that I think a general level of interest and curiosity around security performance is always there, for the technical buyers, right? Like, it doesn't matter if it's WordPress, especially like all this security, cyber hacks and all those things are happening around the world. I would say, like, yeah, any technology buyer is a little bit cautious about whether the platform or tool or software they are using is secure or not. But specific to the WordPress, I see that level of the caution, but it's not like a big turn off for them that WordPress is not secure, so we should not even think about WordPress.
Yeah, and then I guess the follow up to that would be, when you talk to an enterprise customer about adapting them to a WordPress environment, Jonathan had already asked about a couple of obstacles, but like, what are some major problems, or the other side, what are some major opportunities to converting an enterprise, organization into a WordPress environment?
Yeah, this is my interesting question, because I always try to pay attention to this particular part, where, like, what are the things that they really like about the WordPress enterprise customers, and what are the things that they are not yet happy about. So in terms of the problems, I would say WordPress, when we designed it, or when it launched 2004, it was designed for small and medium businesses and bloggers, right? So it's very simple, which is, I think, a strength of WordPress, that is very simple and easy to publish in WordPress. But in enterprise, and when it's a large business, workflow is something that we see a lot, where we have to go and design a custom workflow and use plugins or customization. So workflow is something that I think it's not yet there how enterprises need. So that's kind of like, I would say, a problem and opportunity both for us as an agency, where we help them a lot. Second thing comes to my mind is collaboration, and that is where we also built multi-collab, where right now in WordPress, there is no any way where multiple people can collaboratively create a content and publish. Now, collaboration has been like, we are very poised by the collaborations, using in all the different apps like Canva or Notion or WordPress, Wix and Google Doc and Microsoft, like pretty much any big content creation platform that we see, it has a collaboration tools inbuilt, right? So with that's something that also coming up as a big ask now and big turnoff for the WordPress. Some of the customers, because the collaboration is not there, they were looking and shopping for the other platforms, and that's one reason why we built Multi-Collab. So I think those are the two comes to my mind, that collaboration and workflow.
Awesome. Thanks for the insight. Jonathan, over to you.
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments about what you said. I think when it comes to security, I think people got to understand this. I'll be interested in your response, my own view on this, is that people tend to think that SaaS automatically is going to be more secure. But I think that's a fallacy myself. Look at the ongoing disaster that's LastPass that suppressed that a lot of people's wallets and that were utilizing to store passwords and a lot of secure data had been cracked, and they suppressed that. And the full extent of that breach is still just coming out, and they're being forced. So, and that's been an ongoing pattern, hasn't it? That SaaS companies, suppress the knowledge that they've got some substantial problems where it's open source, it's more out there, isn't it? Which is a two-edged sword, isn't it? Because it does give the slight impression that it's not so secure, but it's only that you're not being told the truth by a lot of SaaS companies. Do you think I'm being unfair there, or do you think I'm basically correct?
I don't know what's the right answer here, but I would say, that's.
You're quite you invited back. You can say that I'm talking absolute nonsense, actually, because I normally am. So
yeah, no, I think my view in general, when it comes to security, is that it's like, do I trust on someone else? Like SaaS is more like you are trusting on them that they will secure your data, they will secure the platform. And in open source, you have a control that you are like, all right, I'm going to set up this on my server. So basically depending, I think, let's say if I'm a kind of a person, where I feel like I don't have the enough resources and budget to secure something of my own, then I think cloud or SaaS becomes a good option. But some of these enterprises, I believe that they have a very decent budget and team and infrastructure to protect. And if they have a more control over how they want to structure, then I think they will be able to take very fast and quick action in order to avoid any security loopholes compared to the clouds. That's kind of like my opinion, is like how you, if you want to control, that's kind of like give you more confidence, then I think that might be the route that you should go for.
And before we go into the other main question, I've got a quick other follow-through question. When you were talking about responding to Kurt's question that, what are the opportunities and that, and you were saying how people look. Now, obviously, when an enterprise customer is looking to change web-based website publishing platform, they normally going to give it to their IT team, and depending on the organization, the higher management will have some input and the marketing. But when they're making a short list, are you finding that WordPress is part of that short list, or is it what are the things based on your conversations that determine that WordPress is in the shortlist? Is it that some of the people in the IT or somebody in higher management has utilized WordPress before in a previous job, working for a previous company, and they say, well, you should look at WordPress, or does it? Because I get the feeling that there's still a bit of resistance from IT departments about WordPress and open source in general. But I suppose it depends on the culture of each IT department linked to each enterprise customer.
Yeah. So two things I would say there. First is yes, when it comes to initial set of options to build website or CMS, WordPress is part of that option. That I've seen that, because when they come, some of the enterprise customers that we work with in the beginning, they will tell us like, hey, we are between Adobe and WordPress, or we are between Sitecore and WordPress, or this third other platform, right? So I can see that like, they have a couple of options and the WordPress is part of that. Most of the times, my understanding, my experience is that the people who is a decision maker in the client side, whether it's a head of technology, CIO, what their experience and involvement is with WordPress, I think that becomes a big factor to decide. And I think you also pointed out that thing, and that is kind of like one area where I have noticed that if they have a very strong, strong connection with other platform or other CMS, then they will lean a little bit more towards that than the WordPress. And that is where I think, we have an opportunity where we need to find what they read, because Gartner, and there are like a bunch of different tech reports and technology research that some of these CIOs and director of technologies in these big companies, they read. And if WordPress is there, then they will know what WordPress is capable of and power of.
That's great. I'm going to throw the other question back over to you, Kurt. So,
okay, well, it kind of switches gears a little bit, but it's still related to an enterprise kind of question. And part of me is hesitant because I'm waiting for you to go, oh, they just use the classic editor. But how are the changes in Gutenberg kind of affecting the way that you're interacting with enterprises? And I guess my question is more like, if I had to refine the question, like, do you find yourself having to train or onboard or work with people to show them the benefits of the block editor and stuff like that? Or are they just kind of adapting it and moving forward?
So one, like most of the customers that we work with, we help them to move from other platform to WordPress. So majority of our customers are like that. So WordPress might be their first-hand experience, right? So at the time, we tell them like, hey, in order to publish the content, we have a Gutenberg, we have a classic editor, and we have a bunch of other page builders. But most of the times, we recommend them and we explain them the trade-offs of each different page builders. We don't get that much. We haven't got any hard resistance on Gutenberg. I think because it's first time they are interacting with the WordPress, because they have been using some other platform. In some cases where someone has already a WordPress website and we help them maybe redesigning, revamping, or brand new WordPress website, So in that case, we had, but it's not that big. But we try to explain them and educate them what Gutenberg editor is and what kind of like it is capable of.
Nice. Yeah, because one of the things I noticed about Gutenberg from a publishing perspective was when you're, for the first time in like forever, I feel like in WordPress, I can go to full screen, editing, and I can write like a writer writes. Like I can really see it. Whereas if I'm in another page builder, I don't have that little text block on the left column, I have a real page that I can really write in. And that's something that I think from a publishing perspective or from a corporate content perspective, I think would be a really good benefit for them, especially if they're new to the platform, because it works and behaves differently than the other. From a space perspective, it operates differently than most other platforms. It's really nice the way that works.
Yeah. And my personal observation in that space is what you mentioned about, I think it's true. Like when we think about Gutenberg, we have to think Gutenberg or page block editor, right? What we need to think about is there is this builder community. So we as a developer agency, consultant, and some of the also team members in our clients team, who are also more hands-on and pro with the WordPress. So that's like that one group of people who are also interacting with this block editor in regards to creating workflows, creating custom blocks and stuff like that. And then there is another group who doesn't care, about all that. They just want to go and write content and publish content every day, every week, and they want to do it faster, better, and quicker, right? So for them, how the interface, like how the editor, they are using the editor, and how editor giving them, the tools to publish and create content, that matters a lot. And that's something that I pay a lot of attention to when I'm interacting with someone in my client's team. I'll try to see whether they are like more pro and they want to see how it's easy to create custom templates, blocks, and all that, or they are just looking for like, hey, I don't care about the template, I don't care about the custom blocks. What I need is like, this is how I've been writing content for last 15 years. Can you make it same or easier? And that's where I pay attention to. And that's where I think block editor gives us that option where we can kind of like design it in a way that it fits the people's need.
Yeah, that's great. Jonathan?
Yeah, pardon?
Is it time for the break?
I just got a quick follow-through question about that. My own position on this is that at WP-Tonic, we were offering Elementor, but now we're offering also Cadence. But we recommend Cadence because what's your own position about this full site editing? Because I just felt that Cadence and Ben, who's the chief technical developer of the Cadence WP, he's a fabulous developer and his team, and he's got great insight. But when it comes to full site editing, I just felt that was the wrong thing at the wrong moment. It needed a period of of building and consolidation, rather than where if you want to go the full site, it's almost like jumping on the train and they're still building the track at the same time. And you're just hoping, you don't really know where the track's going. I'm just more, but I think you can see all the power of Gutenberg with blocks. And so Cadence was the middle ground for us, and I'm very happy. So I just think this whole process and all these page builders and that, there just seems to be instead of, which I felt there was needed a little bit of, was hoping from Gutenberg, was unification, that the opposite is that it's fragmented even a bit more. That's always been part of WordPress, which is probably part of a open source platform. The power of WordPress is all these options, but it's because of Gutenberg, it seems to have even gone a bit further. What's your own response? Do you agree with whatever, or do you think I'm incorrect in what I've just outlined?
So yeah, I think in large platform like WordPress, where A, it's open source, and B, it's also being built and contributed by a large community of developers around the world. I think my personal observation is that, like, when I work with for example, whatever the 42 or 45 or 48% of the WordPress market is, who are using WordPress, we work with, let's say, 52 customers. And in last 14 years, probably I worked with 200 different customers and probably built maybe 500 different WordPress websites. So that's kind of like the data set that I have. When I look into that, I see that everyone has a very different different thing that they pay attention to. Like, something that's very important to one group is not that much important for another one. So full site editing, and a bunch of other things, even like we are talking about the language. I think, multilingual, I think is going to be phase 4. Collaboration is phase 3. So there are like two different, group, like once someone wants multilingual first and then collaboration later. So I can see this priority conflict that, that, and I don't know if there is any right way where somebody is collecting these inputs, like, hey, whether full site editing is important or simple editor is important, whether collaboration is more important or performance is important, or like which we should give more priority?
Yeah, I think you got a good point there. I think where you could say is that there was a necessity, and there still is, to have a kind of roadmap that's really clear and semi. Obviously, a roadmap has to still have the ability to adapt.
Yeah,
but there seem to be fundamental changes that weren't communicated or just seem to happen out of the blue. But that probably isn't the case, but it just came across that way.
Yeah.
So,
but also, I would add one thing, that like full site editing, none of our customer has been asking for it. And none of customer, because that's what I'm saying, like we work with a very small subset of the users of the WordPress. So that's not the 100% of the opinion. But if I just even since full site editing is launched, none of our customer has like, oh yeah, I was waiting for that feature or that option to be enabled. So that's, I think, something that is very also important to see, that who are we serving. Maybe full site editing will be attractive for small, medium, like bloggers, or some of those DIY website builders. But yeah, that's something we need to see. Who are we building WordPress for?
Well, I think that you touched on another thing, which is totally understandable. Because of the size of the user base and the percentage of people utilising, you've got all different type of user cases, haven't you? So to satisfy each user case, each bucket, as I would say, is extremely difficult. So I've got to keep that. We're going to go for our break, folks. It's been a fabulous discussion. I think we've covered a load of stuff in just 30 minutes. We got some other great questions to ask and some areas to cover. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Lifter LMS, the leading learning management system solution for WordPress. If you or your client are creating any kind of online course, training-based membership website, or any type of e-learning project, Lifter LMS is the most secure, stable, well-supported solution on the market. Go to lifterlms.com and save 20% at checkout with coupon code podcast20. That's podcast20. Enjoy the rest of your show.
We're coming back. We have had a fantastic discussion, and we've covered a load of interesting stuff. We've got another great second half. But before we go into it, I just want to point out, if you're a WordPress professional and you're looking for a great partner, great hosting partner, much more, and you've got a community or a learning management project, we specialize in the hosting and the support of WordPress professionals building such websites. We've got a load of experience. We'd love you to come on board and host a website. As you know, community websites on BuddyBoss and learning management systems have unique requirements when it comes to hosting and ongoing support. Why don't you go over to WP-Tonic.com/partners and have a look at what we got to offer. We'd love you to become a partner with WP-Tonic. So I'm going to throw it over to Kirk again.
Fantastic. Anil, you were super gracious. You've already talked a little bit about security and integration, especially with SaaS stuff. But the next question is a little more direct. Like, what do you do when you have this enterprise customer, when you've got a client you're working with, and they're like, we absolutely must connect to, and then you get into the meat and potatoes of it, and you're like, oh man, this sucks. like, wow, they want to connect to this old legacy thing, and it is
not all APIs are built equally, are they?
So I was just, from a strategy perspective, and you could answer this 20 different ways. I know that, but from a strategy perspective, how do you approach or deal with, you're building a new, top line product, and now you're being forced to connect to something that, in your opinion, is like, man, this is junk. Like, how do you breach that?
Good question. So this is something that usually we tackle our discovery phase. So when we take on any new project before that, that's like we have a like discovery phase where bunch of our
Can I slightly interrupt? How do you deal with discovery process? Obviously these are big jobs. Are that we ask for paid, we have initial consultation and then we make a decision that does this need paid discovery? We can't spend hours and hours and hours just doing free discovery. How do you broke it? So is it the same? You do initial free and then you get to a point where you say we're going to have to ask for paid discovery. Is that correct?
That's very true. So our process is that we have a very strong and strict lead filtration. So any website inquiry that comes to us, we kind of like first filter it out whether there will be a good fit or not. And the one that we select, like, all right, these are the good customers or the problem that we want to solve. After that, we have internally for those selected leads, we have, I think, three hours free discovery. So we invest 3 hours of our free time. So that's like very quick, high level assessment. And we don't tell them like, okay, like on the first call that you have to pay right now, So it's like we call it complimentary discovery. So that's like usually it's 3 hours maximum, but sometimes we are able to conclude in 1 to 3 hours. So that's where our solution architect just take a quick look at what customer is asking for. And we have questionnaires where we send to them like, hey, give us these details. And based on that, we tell them about, well, like, all right, based on the information that we have, now we need to do this 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks of paid discovery. And that's where we propose them a paid discovery. But a lot of time, if in these 2 or 3 hours, if it's very straightforward WordPress migration or design, then we don't do the paid discovery. But I would say 98% of the time, it goes through a paid discovery.
Right, well, sorry to interrupt. Back over to you, Kurt. I apologise. Back to the API question.
Well, the main thing of the question is, paid discovery or not, when you find out that what they want to connect to is junk, how do you address that? Like, part of me, and then I've done this before where I've been like, hey, this solution is outdated, old. Can we possibly migrate you to something newer and better and cleaner? But sometimes they're just really committed to something that they paid for. They built custom 10, 12 years ago. And you're like, well, I got to figure it out.
No, I mean, yeah, we have that. We had some of the situations where we dealt with that. My approach or my team's approach in situations like that is that, when we work with any third-party vendor or their own legacy software or someone's software, they don't have a strong, clear, and secure API endpoints, then we tell them like, hey, that is going to be something that like we need this. Like we do the assessment and we provide them that the vendor needs to work on these API endpoints and some of our suggestions. So we do that audit and we tell them what needs to be done in order to integrate that. And surprisingly, we have got a very positive response. Like vendors, because they know the power of the WordPress, they know that WordPress is powerful and it's so big. So they also are very supportive in regards to making those changes into that platform so that we can integrate that well with WordPress. So that's like our approach, number one. Second approach is we also look into, I'm not sure, have you guys know about this integration platform as a service, iPaaS?
No, that's new to me.
I would say like Zapier and Boomi and Workato, these are like some of the examples. So basically what they do is they are like integration platform as a service. So basically they go and look for all these popular enterprise tools, softwares, and applications, and they deal with them and find out like, hey, like let's create these APIs and all that, and then you use them to integrate with WordPress. So then they basically do a lot of hard work in making sure that those API endpoints are secure, they're fast, and whatever the essential APIs are there. So then you deal with. So that's kind of like an approach that we have been taking a lot and suggesting a lot since last few years, where instead of creating everything from the scratch, we will see if this integration platform as a service tools has some of this integration available or not.
That's a little gold nugget right there, because it's kind of like it's like a WP Fusion or Pabbly or Zapier, but it's more of a custom integration solution, right?
Yeah, and there are plenty. I think there are around 16, 18 different iPaaS platform integration platform as a service, and they each has at least 200, 300 different apps that they kind of support. Some of them might be same, some of them might be different in each platform. So I would say that would be my first go to kind of like check if they already have whatever this tool, enterprise tool or software we're trying to integrate. If they already have a support, then I'll just go in and work with them.
Fantastic. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think you mentioned some of the SaaS platforms that you help people move into WordPress. I think on our side, we love the Fluent set of plugins. They Fluent CRM and they've got Fluent Booking and they've got Fluent Forms. We're big supporters of Fluent because Jill and the team, and it integrates with our particular client set. But do you think WordPress, because I think one of the main competitors because a lot of the corporate clients I'm aiming at are between the 5 and 10 million, let's say 500,000 to 5 million, 5 million to 10. I find when they jump from 10 to 20 million, when you look at their website and what they've dropped WordPress. They're utilizing SaaS. They've got a larger IT team, but in that 500,000 to 5 million, 5 million to 10 million, HubSpot has a large presence. They offer a CRM, they offer a website, they offer marketing automation. I'm getting quite, but they're extremely expensive, but not as expensive as Salesforce. But they're seen as a cheaper solution because when people look at implementing a Salesforce kind of solution, it makes HubSpot look cheap. But are you finding that you got people that are looking to move away from HubSpot, or is it a lot of your clients at a higher level? What's your opinion about what HubSpot is offering?
I don't have much experience with HubSpot, but I mean, in the sense, moving anyone from HubSpot to WordPress or helping anyone to move out from WordPress to HubSpot, I have observed that especially some of the customers, and one thing that you mentioned about these different client range and how they decide to switch out from WordPress to HubSpot or any other platform. My observation on that is that, we had some of the customers where we built the whole WordPress website and then a few years later, they are like, we're going to switch to something else. And the pattern that I have observed is a lot of time it's either change in the management. So if, let's say, they have they fired old CTO, CIO, or director of technology, and they hire a new one, and the new person has more affinity with HubSpot or some other platform in the previous company, so they would like to bring in that same experience and the platform. So that's one, the change in the management. Second is merger and acquisition. So that is something that we deal a lot with. Like whenever one of our big client get acquired, then whole thing, like the whole strategy around the platform and everything changes. So it's nothing wrong with the WordPress. It's nothing the right with the HubSpot. It's just something that because the new company.
I'm facing it myself. I'm going to lose one of my major clients in the end of June. They're moving to they got taken over and the people that have taken over are totally against WordPress. They think it's Satan regenerated. They've got no interest in it. You know, I spoke to the chief technical officer, and he made it more than clear. He just thought WordPress was the devil incarnate. End of story. So they've been with me for years, but they got bought up, and the new people, they just hate WordPress. Bless their little souls. Oh, back over to you, Kurt, for the other question.
Well, the next one, Anil, is maybe more personal. Yeah, what tools and services really end up in your tool belt for helping you run your daily business stuff? Like, and what would you recommend to a listener or an audience member that's like, I want to get better at my game? What tools and services should I look at using? You know?
Yeah. I'll share a few. And again, like, these tools are very personal, you know, so everyone has personal preferences. Pretty much like for the one thing, probably you will have 10, 15 tools and they will all be doing the same job one or other way. But a lot of times it ended up being the personal preferences as well. But for the communication, we use Basecamp. So that's kind of like our main platform is for internal as well as external communication. So all our project management with our clients, plus internal communication with our team and department, we are doing it on a Basecamp. I like Basecamp because it's simple and all of that. At one point I was thinking about doing what Automatic does, like creating a P2 blog and then using the WordPress as a communication, internal communication. But then we refrained from that option because it's like if I have more control on that, then my team will spend more time in fine tuning that, you know, rather than working on the client's project. And so yeah, that was my stand. I was like, how do you
deal with clients that insist that you utilize their internal communication system, whatever it is, Norton or whatever thing that they're utilizing? How do you deal with that?
That's a good question. In fact, it's surprising that when we were working with small and medium customers 5 years ago, we were actually more in that situation where they were like this all over, you know, there's like, I will use Asana, I use Trello, I use Monday.com and this and that. And they would
and the other, whatever.
Yeah, exactly, right? But with
they change every week as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, now I want to use Google Doc, you know, I don't like any of those. But yeah, we noticed that with enterprise customers that we work with, you know, we have been suggesting Basecamp, and pretty much everyone, most of them, you know, has been very acceptable to that. I think it's more confidence as well. Like I always tell my team that, like, think about when customers comes to us, you know, it's like you're going to a physician, you know, a doctor, and they tell you like, hey, this is my form, you fill this form, and then next thing is going to happen is I'm going to create your profile on my my doctor, whatever platform that I'm using, and that's where I'm going to share all our diagnosis, and we comply with that because we went there with the solution. And that's something that, I mean, 5 years ago I was less confident, so I was like complying, like whatever platform they would say, I'll try to, but that was not productive because then my team has to learn this whole new platform that they don't know, and the whole communication is fragmented. You know, half of the communication is our internal platform, other project team is communicating other. So we are now taking a very strong stand on that and telling them like, we will use the Basecamp for the communication. And that.
Would you say it's a bad sign if they insist on it? Because fundamentally, if they start telling you what tools you're going to have to utilize and that, it's normally a red flag that this ain't going to go too well. Would you agree with it?
I agree 100%. Yeah. So that's something that I always tell them, like, hey, you know, you came to us and you want us, and I tell them like, hey, we have more experience in WordPress and website design and development, and your expertise is not that. Your expertise is running your business. So I was like, yeah, if you are working with us because you trust on our expertise, and so that also comes with what we recommend.
I'm sorry, I interrupted again. I've been terrible, Kurt. I think he's been constructive. What other tools do you utilise rather than Basecamp? Anything else? What's your position about Slack, and how do you utilise it, and how do you integrate it with Basecamp? Is there any internal, what should go on Basecamp and what should be utilised on Slack? Because I've got a hate-love affair with Slack. I despise it in some ways, and I love it in other ways.
My stand is that Slack is only for emergencies. That otherwise we pretty much use Basecamp for all sort of communication, and that's something that we, let's say, birthday announcements and sending some cute pictures or something like that, internal communication where it's more fun and entertaining, or if it's urgent.
Are you saying the stuff that you don't want the client to accidentally, because you never want to mix a black. We use Slack for internal discussion stuff, but sometimes we have clients on it because we use FreeCamp, but we never. I used to set up two FreeCamp projects, one for the client and one for the intern. But there were a couple of times where people got confused and put stuff on which you don't want the clients to see. So I just keep the clients that do utilise FreeCamp. We always make a new the discussion about it goes on Slack, and we keep it totally separate. So there's no embarrassments. Is that what you're talking about? Embarrassments?
I would say we actually don't.
You don't say anything nasty about your clients, do you?
We don't even we don't create client Slack account. I don't think so. Yeah,
no,
it's Basecamp. Because it's one platform where they will be updated about the communications and all that. But yeah, we share our Calendly and Zoom link so they can schedule meeting if they have something urgent to talk. They have our phone numbers, but I don't think so that we have any client that I can remember who is actually on Slack, on our company Slack.
Before we go on to the next question, I just wonder, have you ever had to sack a customer, and what was the decision? Why did you think? What process did you go through to make the decision, and how did you handle the parting ways with because it doesn't happen very often, but I have had to say goodbye to about 2 to 3 clients, but that's over 15 years. So I don't think I've done too bad, but there are scenarios where you're going to have to say goodbye to them. Got any thoughts about how you've done that and how you made that decision?
Yeah, we have done that too in the past, and especially when we were moving from the small, medium to enterprise, we had to say no to a lot of our small customers at that time. I think my approach was at that time when during the migration process, we were very honest with them, hey, we have been working with you and our hourly rate and all of that was this, but now we are focusing on that. Our engineering team, everything in last 5 years, 6 years, they all got better and things like that. And so we tell them about the fact that our new hourly rate is going to be this, and I don't want to enforce that you need to work, and that's a big jump or whatever. So usually, if it's migration from small to a large customer, I tell them the fact that this is what we want to work. And some of the times, it's not just a WordPress website, but they have bunch of other custom development, and also we also tell them this is not kind of project that we are a good fit,
a Frankenstein.
Correct. Yeah, we are not we will not be motivated to do that. But some of the clients, for other reasons, let's say not just the price, but let's say they have not been a good client, they're not been communication and following the some of our suggestions and the process. Yeah, we kind of approach that with the same candor. We tell them hey, this is what we are struggling with, and I don't think so this is working out. It's very hard. Breakup is very hard.
Oh, it's communication and expectation, isn't it?
Yeah.
I did have one CEO who was I found out about halfway through that she was a raging alcoholic, and she was sending me abusive text messages at 12 o'clock at night. Or I had a meeting, had a physical, and flew in to see her and her chief financial officer, who was a very nice guy, and it was 12 o'clock meeting, and she was drunk at the meeting.
Wow.
She started abusing me at the meeting, but the chief financial officer had to jump in. That one is always burnt into my memory. Back over to you, Kurt, for the final question.
Don't worry, I don't think I'm going to share any of those stories, Anil. The last question is, especially for folks that know Doctor Who from the UK and stuff like that, but if you had your own TARDIS, your own time machine, and you could go back to the beginning of like when you started running your business, what essential advice would you give yourself? Like how would you, meet, greet, and mentor yourself if you went back to the beginning?
So 2 things I would say there. First is, I think based on this 15 years of experience and doing those things, I think it just changed. I learned something, and seen some things with the time and experience. And one big thing is the courage and the confidence. I feel like in the beginning, when you don't know how some of these long-term strategies or some of these decisions are going to play out in a longer run. So I ended up making a lot of short-term fear-based decisions. I didn't do a few things that I should have done, and things like firing the wrong people, hiring the right people. So I didn't have that courage and confidence because I didn't have the experience of dealing with the situation. Now, knowing those things, dealing with those things like hundreds of different times, it's still the same situation. It's just like my perception and confidence has changed. So that is one thing that I would say, tell myself to be more courageous and confident in decision making. Second thing is, I think I would also pay more attention to efficiency than innovation, which means we are in agency business, we are not building a rocket, so that was, I think when I started my agency, there was one thing that was going on my mind to kind of that we have to be innovative, we have to do this all different kind of things. And that actually ended up becoming more like a shiny object for me and more like a distraction to me. It didn't actually contributed that much result into the business growth, but ended up adding a lot of stress. But then when I think about now, I was like, actually the whole agency business is an efficiency business. It's not an innovation business. If whoever is into WordPress, we use the same platform, same set of tools, pretty much the process and infrastructure. There is not much innovation that we need to pay attention to. What we need to do is find a way to make this business efficient. Internally, what are the things that you can do to kind of increase the output, increase the quality, increase the speed and things like that. And that is more on efficiency. And the efficiency is basics. Efficiency works on the basic level. I don't think so there is much innovation that efficiency can do. And that is something that was a big learning for me. So now I try to refrain, to model the framework that we have internally with our leadership team. I tell them scale what has worked. So 80% scale, 20%, less than 20% innovation. So if they come up with new shiny idea about we should do AI or we should do that, I was like, all right, you only 20% time, 80%, let's just do the same thing that we have been doing, because that's what is clients, for each client, it's the same WordPress website, same design, same development, and a lot of different things that we just need to do it more efficiently rather than keep innovating, worrying about innovations.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful there, because I know there's overlap, but I think that can be a big difference between a freelancer's attitude to some extent, where they're looking for the latest technology, the latest plugin, the latest. You get a lot of that in WordPress, the latest hosting provider, the latest plugin, and they all jump ship. Where your agency, you're much more, we look at it, but we're about efficiency, because this is that's the kind of difference in mindset between a competent freelancer and an agency owner. I think that was very insightful. Thank you for that. I think it's been a fab discussion. What's the best way to find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, so my company, Multidots, is on multidots.com. Our other products, their website is multicollab.com for multicollab, and dotstore.com. So they are all three very easy to find. But I also have my newsletter that's on anilg.substack.com. That's where I write a lot about personal growth, personal development, entrepreneurs, anything that I'm experimenting with, any of my learnings. It's like my public journal. That's how I like to say it. Like anything that I learned, I experimented, I tried to take a lot of notes. I'm very good at taking notes, and then I publish those. My learnings.
Oh, I'm not at all. So, Kurt, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what you're up to?
Well, for business stuff or to be a potential guest on our podcast at Mañana No Más, it would be mañananomas.com. And then if it's a personal connection, you just want to reach out, it would be LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn almost every day, and I'm the only Kurt Von Ahnen on LinkedIn. So when you find me, you got the right guy.
Yes, Kurt's got a course that you need to sign up about outreach through LinkedIn. It's a fab course. So hit him up for that. It's very inexpensive.
Right. Kurt, would you mind sharing that?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'll hit you with that. It's on kurtvonahnen.com. But yeah, I'll send you a link directly, Anil. I got your email.
Yeah, that would be great. I did a LinkedIn course last year, learned a little bit about how to use LinkedIn for audience growth. And I was surprised. I was like, I thought I know how LinkedIn works. And then I was like, no, I don't know how LinkedIn works.
No, it's a beast in itself, but Kurt's got a fab cut. And we'll make sure the link's in the show notes, folks. I would highly recommend that you sign up for Kurt's course if you're looking to utilize LinkedIn in 2024. We will be back next week. I think we've had a fabulous discussion. I think your last reflection was fabulous, actually. I think you were spot on, your insight. It's been a fabulous discussion. We've got some great interviews coming up in January. We will be back next week. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. We really do appreciate it. Why not visit the Mastermind Facebook group? And also to keep up with the latest news, click WP-Tonic.com/newsletter. We'll see you next time.